did give me purpose other than myself, which is what I needed. I tell people God is the last thing that I ever tried and the only thing that ever worked. And that is true. I tried everything else. So, and he's the last thing. And it works. It works for me, and it is working.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Julianne Hartman with The Journey, and I have episode number 2 with Jon Gemelke. And please go watch number 1 because he really set the stage. So you need to hear where he's at, what he's done, so that you could appreciate episode number 2. But it's just crazy because Jon is like, just, I mean, someone that's literally deliberately trying to kill themselves and you don't die. This
Correct.
is crazy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions. Where do you go in your mind? I mean, what do you think about when you just want to overdose and die? Like, that's not something that I would think about, right? But you did.
I think about, what is my purpose? I had no purpose.
And you had nobody around you at all.
Nobody.
Okay.
No, remember I told you earlier that I felt unlovable, and therefore, if somebody told me I had been pursued and been asked to settle down and had women say, just marry me and just get out of this lifestyle, and I said no, because I'm like, you can't love me. I'm like, I'm unlovable. And so I think that's where I go. It's like, well, then what's my purpose, right? I have no reason to be here if I'm just going to breathe air. I was getting tired of doing what I was doing and only knowing that. I didn't know there was anything else.
But who told you that you were unlovable? Like, were you just hearing voices? You were hearing a thought in your heart?
I think I just felt like I was damaged goods, and that I was dirty. I was unclean. I was not desirable. Probably, I mean, honestly, probably a lot of abandonment issues from my mom when I was a kid, and not knowing who my dad was, and carrying all that baggage. You know, I learned through the group therapy, and I learned that I was self-medicating. Finally, I learned that, and that's why I was an addict for so long and did drugs, because that was my way of numbing out. As long as I was high, I didn't think of those things.
Wow. All right. So when you were in that room or that cabin and you tried to kill you overdosed 6 times.
Yes.
What was that like?
Depressing that I kept coming back to. I was mad. I was like, are you serious? I mean, this is what I said to myself. I said, you're such a loser. You can't even kill yourself. Like, you can't even do that. So it's like, all right, fine. So then what's next? And I'm used to starting all over. It's not the first time that I would start all over again. I knew that I wasn't going to drive truck anymore. I knew that was done. And
what about those people that gave you the opportunity? Did you call them again?
I did not. I left. The truck had a GPS in it. They knew where it was. And that was it. That was the end of it. I often did. I would just leave, and I would just be gone. Nobody would know where I went. I was very much a loner.
Okay. And then, so what were the drugs that you OD'd on?
Cocaine. Trying to blow my heart up.
And it didn't mess your mind up?
No, I was sore for days. My chest was sore because your heart explodes. Like, I could feel it. I remember just feeling it. Did it mess with my brain? Yeah, speed messed with my brain it took me, once I got clean, which I did finally get clean, by the way. Obviously, here I am sitting here.
Yes, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, but yes, I think drugs messed with my brain, and I had a brain fog for about 6 or 7 years. That is true. Yes.
Wow. I mean, it would have to, because
it does.
Yeah.
So if I was an addict today, killing myself would be really easy, because there's a lot of people that are dying today because of the drugs. So I'm so grateful that I'm not there today.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have a lot to say to a lot of young people.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Okay. So now you have decided, well, I can't even kill myself. Where am I going to go now? Where are you at that point?
So at the end of the last one, so I take an atlas and I pick a spot and it says Colorado Springs, Colorado. So I walk to the Greyhound bus station. I got 2 bags of clothes and $1,600. I buy a one-way bus ticket to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And it's a couple of days journey, if I remember correctly. And the bus gets off on, of course, people aren't familiar, but it passes this motel that's called the Chateau Motel, and it's near I-25 and South Nevada. And so as it passed that, the bus went up about another 10 blocks, and I walked back down to that motel. And that's in March of 2003. And I'm starting all over again. I don't have any dope. I'm clean. I don't
And
have
how
any
old are you
drugs.
now?
I am 30. No, I am 38, almost
Wow.
39. So, um, so I, no, I think I'm 39 because I turned 39 in April and I got there in March. So call it 39. So I go back to that motel room and it's a old Polish family, and he's got a thick accent, and he tried to tell me a certain price, and I said, I'll give you $700 for a month in cash, and he goes, okay, it's $700. So he gave me a room for a month, and I remember the Iraqi war just started, and I remember watching it on the TV and not knowing what I was going to do, and I thought, well, I've got a CDL, which is a driver's license. I said, so maybe I'll try to find a local job, driving a truck or something like that. But I didn't do that. I ended up, I just drank a little bit, but I stayed clean, but I was running around the seedy parks. So it turns out that I was right across the street from a park where I could get any drugs that I wanted to. But remember, I told you I didn't want to do that anymore. I knew that I wasn't going to do drugs. I was going to hopefully not do drugs anymore, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And a prostitute named Deborah was working out of that motel. Super pretty and super nice. And she was about my age, and she was a heroin addict. And again, I'm celibate. I've been celibate now for probably 3 years because I just, well, it was dangerous just to just to sleep around was very dangerous. I didn't want to die from AIDS. I didn't mind killing myself, but I didn't want to have to deal with some disease that I might catch from somebody. So
Okay,
I
that
just,
doesn't make sense.
it does make sense because I'd seen people that had to deal with that, and I didn't want to deal with that sickness. I didn't mind taking myself out. I didn't want to die slowly from something like that. Does
Okay,
that make sense?
yeah, no, that makes sense. But I do have another question. Did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
you just quit cold turkey? You didn't have to detox?
Correct. I
Wow.
detoxed in that motel room on my own.
When
Yeah.
you had overdosed.
After I overdosed and got to Colorado, that's when I really went on my kind of detox and my
Okay, so
cleanse.
you detox, what was that like? Was it like a 1-day thing? Was it a couple days?
It's a mindset, more of a mindset for me. It was like I was just done. I'm done. What's next?
Did your body have withdrawals?
I craved it. I craved dope for 7 or 8 years.
Mm.
Yeah. I just had to fight the craving.
Right. So what did
No.
you do? How did you fight the craving?
Stayed to myself, drank a few beers just to take the edge off. That's all I allowed myself to do was a few beers. Smoke a little bit of weed, just a little bit, just to take the edge off. I never liked weed because I'd rather be conscious of my surroundings and not just kind of numb to it. And pot kind of zones me out. I don't function well with it.
Okay. All right. So now you don't know your purpose and you're trying to figure that out. And you meet
Right.
a heroin addict.
I do. Her name is Deborah. She came knocking on my door one day and she said, I want to take you to dinner. And I was like, Deborah, I'm not interested. She's like, I thought she was hitting on me. She's like, I'm not hitting on you. I'm like, okay. All right, I'll go. She says, you need a friend. She says, you've been here almost a month by yourself. I don't see you hanging out with anybody. She says, just come and hang out with me. She brings me 2 blocks away is a place called the Springs Rescue Mission. And that's where she brought me to dinner. So Deborah, so she brought me to dinner there, and she introduced me to some guys in the program, and they asked if I might be interested in joining the program, and I said no. Well, then Deborah and I became a little bit closer after that. We'd hang out some and walk around some when she wasn't working, mind you. And she was she was a Catholic. She loved Jesus. She knew that what she was doing was not the right thing to do. And she would say that. She says, I just hope that he will forgive me. He knows that I love him. She professed a love for Jesus, and she introduced me to Jesus. She said, and I, another round of goosebumps. So anyway, she said, I really think you should join that program. She said, the streets are not for you anymore. She said, that part of your life is done. She said, you've lived through a lot. And she said, that is not where you belong anymore. You don't belong running. You need to get clean. You need to go and find Jesus and join this program. So I walked over to that program April 5th of 2003 and gave my heart to Jesus.
Wow.
I
Okay,
don't,
wait, I got a question.
yes,
Why
ma'am.
was she a prostitute then? Just to make money?
Yeah, for her habit, to support her
Oh,
heroin
I
addict.
see. Okay, got
She was
it.
a junkie.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Did you get to minister to her at all about why don't you just stop?
We had talked about that, and she said, I can't beat this. She couldn't
Mm.
stop.
And that's
So
how
she,
interesting is that? You don't know the Lord, and you're
correct.
like, I'm done. And then she
Yes.
says she knows the Lord, and she says that she can't beat it.
She
Wow.
can't beat it. Yeah.
Okay.
She didn't. She ended up dying from it.
Mm.
So she used to come and visit me in the program. She would come in evenings and have dinner. We'd sit and have dinner when I was in the program. And then one of the things the program asked you to do is they asked you to give up all your money, not to them, but to put it aside so that you didn't have the temptation. Well, I didn't do that. And I remember after about so it's right around July. So it would have been in June. I remember my bunk mate, he went and got some dope and he got high in front of me. And I saw his eyes. I knew the feeling, like I've seen it, done it, experienced it. So then I went out and bought some dope. It was more than I could handle. So I went out back on the streets, and I was out on the streets for 5 weeks. And that's the last time. So I tell people my born again date is 4/5/03, and my clean date is July 4th weekend of 2003, the same year. Because I did go back out because I had that money. And so I went and bought a bag of dope, and I ended up out in the woods outside of Colorado Springs for 4 days, out in the woods, just with water.
Okay, when you say I found myself out in the woods, how did you get out there?
I rode a bike out there, then ditched the bike and ended up just camping in the woods, just staying in the woods, hiding under bushes all day,
Okay, and doing drugs.
doing drugs.
And
So I
that
come out of the woods. And I find Deborah, and she's furious. She is pissed.
I don't blame her.
She is so mad. And I'm like, feed me. I haven't eaten in 5 days. And she's like, okay. And so she makes me a tuna fish sandwich, and she says, get your butt back into that program. I told you these streets are not for you. And I went back. So the mission was doing a cookout in the park, Acacia Park. They were doing a cookout that weekend. And I went back and I asked them, I said, can I come back in the program? And they said, if you can stay clean this weekend, we'll see you on Monday. So I stayed clean that weekend, and I've been clean ever since. And I went back on Monday. I did 20 months in that program. That's how my daughter found me, by the way. They did a newspaper came in and did an article about the men in the program. And it was called Rescued Men Saved Lives. And I was one of the featured pieces in the newspaper article. And so they put that article online. And then I was in church then. I found a church home, and I had a tormentor, my pastor. I call him a mentor. I call him my tormentor jokingly, but I had a mentor, and had a church and accepted, and people were loving on me, and I was getting better, and I was healing. And they did that article in the newspaper, and they put it online. And so remember I told you they've been looking for me? Well, then my name popped up with a picture. And my daughter, she said, Mom, I think I found him. Look, is this him? Is this him? And there's my picture. And she's like, yeah, that's him. So it had the address of the rescue mission. And so she wrote me a letter when she was 9. And And I remember that letter. I still have that letter. She wrote me a letter and she says, "Hey, I don't remember if you remember who I am, but I'm Valerie. I'm your daughter and I'd like to get to know you." And so then I had to tell my church family that I had a daughter, which nobody knew. And I remember praying. It's really interesting because I remember reading in the Bible. I remember reading about how you should take care of your family, that you're responsible to take care of your family. And I'm like, all right, God, if I'm supposed to take care of my daughter, then you'll know when that time is and bring her back into my life. A couple of weeks later, I got a letter from my daughter. So, I mean, I think he was kind of preparing me for it. So she came out to visit me. I had moved in with a family from church, an elderly family. I'd renting their basement. And I was still interning at the mission, and I was running their warehouse there. And so she came out to visit me, and she stayed for, gosh, I think she stayed for a couple of month and a half, almost 2 months. And then
Okay,
she went
so
back.
hold on. What was that like when you saw her for the first time?
She was, so our mom used to call her Little John, and it used to piss her off. And then when she met me, she's like, "Oh my gosh, now I know why my mom called me Little John, because we were two peas in a pod. We're exactly alike. Same personality, same attitude. She looks like me. Unfortunately, she looks more like her mother, so she's at least pretty, but she's definitely my kid. Like, definitely."
And what was it
And so
like in your heart when you saw her? I mean, were you like, did you cry? Did you act like a tough guy?
now I cried. I cried. She was beat red. They drove all the way down from Minnesota in a little Ford Fiesta, and she was in the back seat with no air conditioning. She
Oh
got
my
out of that
goodness.
car and she was beat red. So anyway, and everybody loved her here. You know, the church accepted her, and the people that I was living with were like my honorary mom, and a grandma to her, because she came back. She moved back out the next year. She came back out the next year to that summer, and she never went back.
And
She's
that's
been
when she
she
was 10?
That's when she was 10. And her mom said, "You take better care of her than I can. Please just take her. Just raise her."
Oh,
So we did. Her mom was manic depressive bipolar. She would end up in the state mental hospital from time to time. Valerie never knew when she went home if her mom was going to be there or not, or what was going to happen. So it was better for her. I could see how God designed that and brought her out here. It was better for her, better for me.
it gave you a purpose.
It did give me purpose other than myself, which is what I needed. I tell people God is the last thing that I ever tried and the only thing that ever worked. And that is true. I tried everything else.
That is,
So, and he's the last thing, and it works. It works for me, and it is working. So
wow. Okay, so then she's staying with you.
she
Um,
is staying with me.
okay. And then what happens from this point?
So she stays with me, and then so I meet a girl at church. I've known this girl for a couple of years now. Right? Her name is Tracy, my wife. We've been married. Gosh, I think we're coming up on 20 years. Um, Let me see. My oldest daughter is going to be 18, so 19 years. 19 years. Um, so I meet Tracy. Tracy and I end up, and I remember we're still living in my mom's basement at that time. My honorary mom. We're living down in her basement, and I remember Tracy she went to China, and I remember missing her. And that was the first time that I realized, like, oh crap, I think I like this kid. Like I like this girl, right? I'm like, and then I tell Valerie, Valerie's my oldest daughter. I said, "Come on, we have to go see your future mother, your future stepmom." And she goes, "Does she know that?" And I'm like, "Not yet." So anyway, turns out that Tracy missed me too. And when she came back, she said, "Yeah, I remember getting all dressed up to go to church to see you. You weren't there that Sunday." She's like, "It really pissed me off." But that's when we realized that perhaps there was something going on there, and that perhaps God had that in mind for us to be together. And we got engaged. We had a three month kind of a courting, got engaged, and then 7 months later got married. And we've been married ever since. And I've got two other kids from her. So, and Tracy loved me and accepted me for who I was. She knew I was damaged goods, and I treated her poorly for the first 6 years, very poorly, because I said she used to tell me she loved. So she taught me that love is a choice. And she says, I choose to love you. I choose to take you on. She said, I can handle you. And that hurt me at first. I was like, what does that mean? And love is a choice, right? You choose to love someone, you choose to commit to them and stay with them. And so learning that from her was probably one of the most valuable lessons, the first ones that I learned. But I put her through heck. And a friend of mine, my closest friend, I have two friends, two guy friends, just two, which is probably one more than most people have. My friend Kevin D helped save our marriage when I met him. And he taught me how to put others first in everything that I do and put myself last. And I started doing that and started putting her first in all that I do, and it saved our marriage. It saved everything for us.
And that was a choice that you made to let him mentor you?
Yes.
So you
Kevin
knew
D had quality. Yeah.
you knew your marriage probably wasn't going to last.
Oh, we talked about annulment right away. We talked about divorce, but we were like, but we both love God, and we made the commitment, and we said, no, we got to stick this out. So divorce really wasn't an option for us, but we knew that we couldn't stay together and hate each other.
Right.
I mean, and we didn't want that. And so it did get better. And I will tell you now that I love her more today than I did yesterday. And that's a daily thing. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that is so sweet. Okay, so
Yeah.
what was your biggest problem in that first 6 years? You just were selfish?
Yes.
You didn't want to commit? What was going through your mind?
I was selfish, and I didn't believe her when she said she cared for me. I didn't believe her.
So okay, that's good. I'm glad you said that. What did you want her to do in your mind to prove to you that she cared about you? What would have proved that to you?
Probably, I don't know. Probably the fact what did prove it to me is that she chose to stay with me when she could have just left me.
Well, yeah, that's 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm responsible for putting her through that. It wasn't her.
Right.
It was all me.
But what I'm getting at is that a lot of times we throw out statements, but we don't talk about like, all right, so what was that? And can you even identify that? Because John, there's more people out there that are dealing with situations that you're dealing with right now that are maybe, in their 40s, maybe they're in their 20s. And so how you're telling your story is just awesome. So I really do believe that it's really going to make some people think. It's going to free them. But, most importantly, it's going to really point them to Jesus. So during
Amen.
those 6 years, were you guys getting more into the things of God, into the kingdom? I mean, what was your spiritual life like?
So my spiritual life was nowhere near, I was struggling because I was bored. I was bored sitting in church, standing up for 3 songs, sit down. To me, it was boring. And I remember looking out the window and seeing homeless people walk by our church. And I said to my pastor, I said, we do nothing for anybody outside these walls. And I said, why is that? And then I remember being challenged to go. So then I remember being challenged. I sat for 4 weeks in a park downtown called Acacia Park. And the task was just to pray for people as they walked by, no matter who they were, homeless, church people, whatever. And then on the 5th week, I got a message that said, I want you to buy socks. And next week, I want you to pass out socks. So then I passed out socks the next week. And I've been passing out socks for many years now. I have a nonprofit called Sock It To 'Em. We hand out socks to the homeless. About
Oh, I love
13,000 pair of
that. Wait,
socks a year.
wait, we got to stop right there. It's called Sock It To Me.
Sock It To 'Em.
Oh, Sock It To 'Em. And
Yep.
what did you say after that? You said
We
something?
we hand out about 13,000 pair of socks a year, one pair at a time, to the homeless, to people in need. So that was kind of, I've always been street ministry. We do street outreach every week. My daughter does street outreach with me, my 17-year-old. My oldest daughter did it with me too. I drag her out onto the streets, and we, give out clothes, jackets, food, socks, things like that. I don't know what the switch was for me. I think I had to get outside of myself and realize that life was all about others and not me. And that, because my friend Kevin said, always put others first, always put others first in everything you do. And that was a big one for me because addiction is very selfish and it's very self centered. It's all about you and your needs, not anybody else. And so once I made that switch to always put others first, then I noticed my wife putting me first as well. So then it was like, because there'd be a decision, she'd be like, well, what do you want? And I'd be like, well, what do you want? You know what I mean? It was like, it wasn't, it was each, it just flowed. And she noticed the change. She says, I noticed a big change in you since you've been hanging out with these guys. So there was a whole group of guys. We were doing a men's Bible study. I'm still part of that men's Bible study today. The same group that saved our marriage.
That is awesome. Now, do you feel that you might not have been together had you not had
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
I might have we still were committed. I didn't want to be with her and then not like her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I didn't know what else to do, so I stuck it out. We both stuck it out.
Wow. So now through all the things that you did and things that happened to you, the best thing that came out of it was your wife, your children, and your ministry.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Do you know Joe and Tessa Swearingen?
I do.
Do you know that that we are part of their, I don't know that we love them very much. And their coffee shop is in a building that my wife and I own.
Oh, Java House.
Yes, that's our building. And in fact, I'm in the back corner of Java House right now. This is my office in the back corner.
Oh, okay. I actually, when we go to Woodland Park to see Andrew, that's where we always go there. Matter of fact, the last 2 years, I've had my birthday party there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Because my birthday is in August, and we're always there for Healing is Here. Nice. And so we just always have like a little birthday party there. Well,
maybe we can meet this year.
I would love to.
So we have a short-term rental. No, but I have a little short-term rental. Very interesting. Anyway, no, but we love. Joe and Tessa came into our lives at the beginning of the pandemic, and been using this space ever since. So yeah, they're great people.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so what would you say to someone that's watching that is exactly where you were at 19 years old? Now that we've come this far, you're 60 years old, you've had a lot of time to think about your life. And what would you say to someone that was in the exact same situation as you?
Gosh, that's a pretty deep, I don't know. So I used to always say, one of the things that I always did was I always blamed others for my situations. I would never take responsibility for I did and I didn't, but I was always said, well, they drove me to it. They, them. I would take I out of your vocabulary. I is a big one. I used to call it memeism. Don't make it about you, make it about others. Addiction is very selfish and it will make you very lonely and keep you isolated and away from others. You have to look for those people that have come to you and said, hey, I've been praying for you. Maybe you mocked them or made fun of them before, or maybe you should take that in consideration, that no matter where you are, God, ultimately, in the end, God wants you to come to him, right? He wants you. And he's protecting you. He protected me. I can see his hand on me and my stupidity for many years to get me to be sitting here today and be a part of the people that we are a part of now. So don't give up, but you have to be willing to make a change. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. That's pretty important. You can't say, well, I'll get high one more time and then I'll change. No, you gotta stop what you're doing and try something different. I would like to say try Jesus. Like I said before, I remember many years people saying they were praying for me, and I used to laugh at them. Inside, I'd be laughing. I'd say thanks, but that doesn't mean anything to me. And I remember, and now I can see, like, I needed all those prayers, right? Those people were protecting me. They were putting out that armor for me. I didn't know that. just don't give up. Your circumstance is there because you put yourself there, but be bold and try to put yourself in a different circumstance. Search some different things out. That's what
So
we did.
another question. Did you condemn yourself for years about the time you wasted?
Ha. Sometimes I will try that, but then I say, but look where you are today. Did I have to do all of those things? Did I have to do all those things to get here? Possibly. Could I have done some different things to get here? Possibly, but that was my journey. And if God will use it, I get to sit here and talk to you. This is a blessing, right? So, did I have to go through all those things just to get right here today? Maybe. I don't know that answer. I don't know that answer, but I'm grateful for where I am today. Do I wish it were a little easier? I don't even know that answer because maybe it makes my personality. Maybe it that is all part of his design to make me the person that I am today. Maybe.
Well, we know he didn't put you through any of that stuff. You've made that
I put
choice.
myself through. He
Yeah, you put
protected me
yourself
in
through
my
it.
stupidity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and your personality. So, what part of your personality that got you into trouble that now is getting you into great and wonderful things for the kingdom?
Probably my not being willing, not stopping, pursuing, always being willing to pursue some new things, something different. Wanting to grow, wanting to be a better person on a daily basis. A lot of times my prayer is Father, please put somebody in front of me today that I can make an effect with, that I can help, that we can help, right? Like show me what it is today that I can do for you is a very common, quick prayer for me before I leave the house. Um, and always wanting to put others first. People will say to me that I'm a giver, and I accept that because I like that. I'd rather be a giver than a taker. Um, but I know I've got another friend that battles with me. He's like, you got to receive to learn how to give, and I'm like, but I'm a terrible. I don't like people showering me with things. If that makes any sense.
So, what did you end up doing? Because obviously, to have that kind of mind that you did to be able to survive, whether it was out in the desert or behind, underneath bushes or in a cabin for years, like how did you use some of that tenacity to like start a business besides your ministry? Do you have another business that you operate?
What's that?
I said,
What was that last part?
do you have a business that you operate besides the
We
ministry?
Yeah, we've been very blessed. We work very hard. We have several businesses. I don't want to go again, please. This is not about me. This is about God taking care of us. Yes, he's given us to whom much is given, much is required. I believe that. So he's given us, he's really blessed us very, very much so.
Well, the
We
reason I bringing that up is because you were in a place where you were trying to destroy yourself. So what did you maybe take from that and put it into your businesses so that you could have success?
um I've always been a very I don't you asked some very good questions, stuff I hadn't really thought about.
It's a typical woman asking questions to a man. They're like, I don't even think about this stuff.
Right, right. And it's kind of some of that stuff I don't think about. I've just got to drive. So God had given me a wife and a family to take care of. We have a special needs son. His name is Colton. So my wife needed to be a stay-at-home mom. So I have to hustle. That's what I have to do is I have to drive to go, go, go. Um, and I need to provide for my family, right? God provides, but I mean, obviously, he gives us a skill set. We need to get out there and do it. So when I
Right.
say it, it's not about me; it's about him. But he's given me a skill set to make us to make us prosper. I'm not afraid to take chances. I'm not afraid to listen to the Holy Spirit, and He gives me a leading to do something, and I go. And I love it when people will confirm, like, "Oh, that was the right thing." They'll come back to me maybe later and privately tell me something that we did, and they're like, "And this was what I was asking for, and this is what I did." I'm like, "Yay! Thanks for that confirmation," because it gives me more strength to keep on doing it, right? To know that perhaps we're on the right path.
That is awesome. See, that's what But the reason I'm asking you these questions is because there's somebody out there watching that feels like I'm a failure. I don't know how I'm ever going to turn this around. And how is God going to even use me? That's why I want you to tell people like how they can be not used, but how God can work through them to become
Yes.
successful.
Yes. And I'd go back to the mission and talk to the mission in the men's program. The same program that I graduated 20 something years ago, I go back and talk to and show them like, look, I was here. I was that guy that was here on the streets where you are, and now we are not. And that God is not done with you yet. And you can still, there's still a chance for you to do things. You know, they say I have a friend. Well, I only have two friends. I have an associate. I say friend loosely. Let me just say it that way. But anyway, I know a guy, and he's like, I don't know if I can rebuild myself again. And I've been praying for him, and we opened up a space for him so that he's renting a space for us to help him in that. And I get that. And I'm like, no, brother, you can. And he's a believer, and he is doing well. But when we first met him, he wasn't doing so well. So I mean, I think, you know, you just gotta you have to get a relationship with the Holy Spirit for one. You got to pray and you got to listen, and you can't be afraid to do the things that you hear. You have to, even if it's just a baby step. Like, and I used to say that, I'm like, am I hearing that clearly? And I remember then being blocked, and I'm like, Father, you're not using me like you haven't used me since this. And he's like, I tried to use you, you wouldn't do that one thing. And then I'm like, oh crud, all right, fine. So then I'll go back and do that one thing he's been pestering me about, and then it's like, now it's open again for other things. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like I was
Yes.
my own worst enemy. I was blocking. So
Amen.
don't
I
be,
get it.
so don't be afraid to do the things that you hear him asking you to do. Even if it's just a few little ones, he's not afraid to be tested. Just test it a little bit. And then it'll build it up for you.
That is awesome. And you know, when he's asking us to do something, it's for our benefit. It's not to
Yeah,
see you struggle. It's not to see you, you know,
absolutely.
be unsuccessful to completely destroy your life. No,
Yes.
it's for you to prosper in all ways. And so not
Yes.
just financially, not just physically, not just spiritually, but all those ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yep.
John, thank you so much. This has been an incredible interview, and I'm just so thankful. I can't wait to meet you someday. I hope I get to meet you soon.
You absolutely will. I'll be looking for you in August.
Okay, I will be there, and
And
I'll be
thank
there
you
to
very
get
much.
I get my blood orange my tea they make me there. My
I like
London
their blood
fog.
orange tea with a little honey in it. It's
Oh yeah,
really good.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
you got the sweetest employees there, but yeah, I
Yes.
love that place. So, but thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for opening up your heart to tell people, you know, what it was really like and how, you know, just the struggles that you went through. And how God just literally pulled you out of all of it and made you who
Amen.
you are today.
Yes, absolutely. It is. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share. And if anybody comes to Southern Colorado and they want to have a cup of coffee, I'm open to that as well. So
Oh,
please
that's
reach
awesome.
out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And trust me, if anybody wants to do that, please email us at healingjourneystoday@gmail.com and we will get your email to John. Obviously,
Thank you.
he's a man that wants to help and give back the
Yes.
things that he didn't know where to go. And
Yes.
so it's, you know, that's what we do, right? So that we are
Yes.
able to help people and see the things in the people. You're like, don't waste your time on that. Let's go.
It's
You
always
know,
about others. Put others first. It's always about others.
yes,
Amen.
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, John. And thank you to all the people watching. Make sure that you share these videos. They're really important. They're amazing. And we love you. And we'll see you next time.